good evening. Welcome to our program, Faces, Πρόσωπα. And before I go further, let me just say a big thank you to our sponsor, the two homes, Anastasia Lodge and Autumn Gardens, Mr. Melis Ouris and his family. Thank you very much for your support. And welcome Alex Christofi.
Welcome, thank you.
Welcome to our studios. You okay?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, very well.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
nice to have you here. We're going to talk about you and your books. And before we talk about your books and all this, is it possible to find out about you, about your family? You are a Cypriot. You're born here in London.
I was born on the south coast near Bournemouth.
Ah, Bournemouth.
Yeah,
okay.
so I've lived in London for nearly 20 years now. I moved here in order to work in the publishing industry, so I have a day job as a book publisher. But I was born in a small town just outside Ringwood with my parents who lived down there.
Your parents are still there, or?
Yeah, they're there now and very happily retired. So my father originally came from Cyprus. My mother came from Dorset originally. So
they're both Cypriots, yeah?
No, my mum's from Dorset. So my dad's from Cyprus. Yeah.
Okay then. Okay. Any more in your family? I mean, brothers, sisters, and all this?
Yeah, I have two brothers, and they both have daughters. So we have a lovely growing family. I've now got 3 nieces, which is beautiful.
Do they anybody of the family, writing as well, or?
Yeah, my dad actually writes. So he was a biology teacher before he retired, and he would
wrote
always
the books and all this.
Yeah, he wrote books about biology and also revision books to help students to learn for GCSEs and for things like that.
Was he a doctor?
He studied biology in university, so he wasn't a medical doctor, but so that's been a lot of his writing, and more recently he's written a novel about Cyprus.
A novel?
Yeah. So
in English, yes.
That's in English, and so that's up on Amazon.
That's interesting. What is the theme about the story?
It's called Sentence to Love, and it looks at 2 characters whose lives kind of intersect when they come to meet. So he's been writing fiction recently, and I think really enjoying it.
Good. And then you moved to London 20 years ago.
Yes, that's right.
Because you get a job here and all this.
Yeah, so I got a job in publishing, working to represent authors, and then later to become a publisher for non-fiction books.
You start writing before you get the job, or it was afterwards?
Yeah, I always did writing actually. In university, I was part of the Poetry Society, and I was always writing something. I wasn't sure kind of, did I want to be a poet or maybe a playwright, or I wasn't really sure. So I was just trying everything out. And then when I was in my 20s, I started writing longer work, prose work. So
you wrote some plays as well?
Yeah, very early on. So I wasn't doing theatre for very long, but I had a couple of years where I was writing for the theatre, which was really fun.
You published any poetry as well?
I think I had 1 poem published.
So
it wasn't a long career.
Okay, tell me about your books. I mean, leave Cypria last, so we can talk about it more.
So I started out as a novelist. I wrote in my mid-20s, I wrote a novel called Glass, which was a coming-of-age story of a young man growing up in London. And it was a little bit kind of comic novel, and it looked at contemporary London. And I was very proud to have been, I won a prize from the Society of Authors for first-time novelists. So that was a really lovely start in around 2015.
2015.
And then I wrote a follow-up novel, a second novel, which was set in Paris, which was a kind of love story set in Paris.
Did you have to travel to Paris for that, or?
Yeah, it was very
get the feeling of
very difficult job of obviously having to go to research and eat lots of croissants and live in Paris for a bit. That was very, very nice.
Was that like mythology, or it was a true story, or?
It wasn't a true story, but I did lots of research to understand the lives of people, particularly after the Second World War. There was a generation around the time of the fall of the Fourth Republic. De Gaulle came back, and there was the Algerian War as well. So there were questions of colonialism that were being asked very explicitly in Paris at the time. So I thought it was a really interesting moment in history where you could look at all these questions that society asks about multiculturalism, about how we survive after a war. And I look back on it now and I can see there's very clearly some parallels to Cyprus there, but I felt maybe I wasn't ready to write about Cyprus at that stage.
Did you, did you know about Cyprus? I mean, did you go into Cyprus very often? You know the history of Cyprus, or you research to write the latest book? I mean,
yeah, I always knew. My dad had always told me roughly, you know, what had happened, the basic things. I think the things that I felt I didn't know were some of the unpleasant aspects of history, which feel maybe necessary, but it's not the kind of thing that you ask your family over dinner. So there were aspects to that history that I felt I still needed to research.
Yeah. So what else you wrote after before Cypria?
Yes. So there was one other book. So this was my first non-fiction book. And it was a biography of the Russian writer Dostoevsky, Fyodor Dostoevsky. He was one of my favorite writers when I was, I studied literature, and I always felt a huge sympathy with Dostoevsky's writing. He was asking big, difficult questions about ethics, about how we should live. And also, I thought it was really interesting that he always wanted to write a novel, but he never managed to do it. Yeah. He ran out of time, unfortunately. So I had the idea to find these autobiographical passages across his fiction and to try to sort of put them together and see if I could reconstruct a kind of memoir out of his writing. So that was a long project. It was
you traveled to Russia as well?
I did. I traveled to Moscow and St. Petersburg. And yeah, it was, it feels like a long time ago now, but it was fairly recent. 5 years ago was probably my last trip to Russia, to St. Petersburg, and it was amazing to see all of the places where he spent so much time in, particularly St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I suppose your books have been published by your company or your?
No, so the two non-fiction books have been published by Bloomsbury. So they're very good history publishers. So they were an appropriate publisher for it. But it's better if I don't try to publish my own work.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Anyway, let's talk about the Cypria. I mean, Cypria. When did you start? You know, the research and all this.
I kind of wanted to write a book about Cyprus for a long time, but I always thought it was it was difficult because it's a subject that's very important to me. It's part of my family history, and I wasn't sure quite how to approach it. For a long time, I thought maybe I would write a novel that would show some of the history, and actually, the longer that I waited, the more I realized that in the English language, there are very few books which will cover the whole history of the island from 12,000 years ago when humans first arrived all the way through to the present day. There are some very good books which will cover a period in the 1950s or in 1974 or something like that. Yeah. But not something that kind of has
from the beginning of you know, when long time ago, you know, and you know, during you know, the wars and during invasion in Cyprus and EOKA and all this kind of thing. I suppose you cover all this yourself, you know, in the book. Yes.
Yeah. But actually, it was important to bring in a lot of the ancient history is fascinating, and because there's so much to talk about when it comes to the war, to EOKA and recent events, I do cover those. But I felt it was really important to say, well, the story of Cyprus is long. We have this amazing heritage. There's an ancient kingdom called Alasia, which used to be a major power in the Bronze Age. So it was he would address the pharaoh of Egypt as my equal.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously copper was a huge part of that as a trading empire. So there were stories that I wanted to tell which would show how important Cyprus has been to world history, even before you get to the long, complicated 20th century.
Mm-hmm. So this book is being published when? About a year ago?
So it was published several months ago in May.
In May, yes.
Yeah.
And if anyone wanted to buy it, can they buy it? Where can get it from?
They should be able to get it from either Amazon or a local bookshop like Waterstones should be able to order it or stock it online.
Mm-hmm. And what is the price? I mean,
so it is called Cypria, A Journey to the Heart of the Mediterranean, and it's priced £20 in hardback.
mm-hmm.
And this time next year there will be a paperback edition coming out as well.
Oh, okay, lovely. Okay, but tell me about last Wednesday. What's happened? You had a special event where
yes. The High Commission organised an event which was to look at different diaspora approaches to our Cypriot heritage and how that's affected our work as artists.
Mm-hmm.
So I was paired with Lucy Christofi, who is a very good actress. She's done some amazing stuff for Cypriot TV as well as live theatre, particularly at Theatro Technis in London. And so the event was to discuss our influences and how Cyprus has worked its way into our work and our careers, both on the book writing side and as an actress.
Was it good? Was it successful? I mean, people were interested to find out more about it?
Yeah, I think it's something that speaks to all of us really, because we each of us, when we create art, if we engage with art, we're bringing everything that's sort of personal into that relationship with the art. So it's inevitable that it feels like a very kind of personal engagement when we act in a play that's about Cypriot history, or if we start writing about our shared history together.
How you managed to put all this together? I mean, did you, when you did the research, you were taking notes and then you were writing, all the information down, and you have to change the order, or how you work? I mean, tell us, give us more about it.
It's a difficult process. You go sort of 2 steps forward and then you come back and then you go forward.
Yeah, this is what I mean. I mean, up and down all the time. And
a little bit. One of the very important things was to do research trips in Cyprus. I've been to Cyprus, every other year normally.
Especially for the book, yeah?
Yeah, so I always go anyway to see my family, but for the book, it was important to see some places that I'd never been to before, to make sure that I had an understanding of the whole island, visit every museum.
Yeah, exactly.
And part of the island's history is, of course, in the north. So there were places that I went to.
You managed to go to the north as well?
I went into the north as well. I haven't really spent time there before, so there were places like Gerinya that it felt important to show the history, particularly before the 1950s. There's that amazing castle of Ilarion. There's the Lala Mustafa. Ancient Byzantine castle, which was taken by the Lusignan. There's an amazing. It was a French Gothic cathedral, now a mosque, called Lala Mustafa Pasha Mosque in Famagusta, and you can still see the marks of the siege on the building. And so each chapter was a place around the island, almost like a tour of the island. And each chapter shows you a place which represents a particular moment in history. So it begins by Aphrodite's rock. We talk about Aphrodite coming ashore at Paphos.
You include some pictures as well in the book?
Yes, I was taking photos all the way through, and actually, as part of the Cypria project, I had a photo essay published in the Observer magazine. So there are that photo essay focused on pictures of Varosha, which you can now go and visit. It's been sort of opened up to walk around. It's a very strange, eerie place, but there was a photo series of the abandoned buildings there.
How many pages is the book?
It's I think about 350 pages, something like that. The hard part, actually, when I was coming to the modern period, there's so much to talk about. The hard part was trying to make sure I told all the stories, but didn't make it too long.
Yeah.
Because it could.
When I first heard about your book, it was when during a week dedicated to Cyprus, and they produce a play like based on in a poem, which is included in the book. I don't know what exactly.
So Cypria was an ancient epic that was is supposed to have been written by Stesinos of Cyprus, and we think that one of the texts seems to suggest that he was the son-in-law of Homer. And so it's a kind of prequel. It shows you all of the events that led up to the Trojan War. Famously in the Iliad, it begins in the 9th year of the Trojan War of the 10 years. And so there's a huge amount of stuff that's happened before then. So the Cypria was all of these founding myths, and it showed how Zeus had a big grand plan to try to empty the world. Gaia was too overladen with humans, and Zeus had a big plan to relieve Gaia of some of the humans so that she could breathe more freely, and that was the beginning of the Trojan War.
Yeah, unfortunately I didn't manage to read the book because I didn't have the book, but I'm looking forward to read it because obviously nobody has been able to get a book where we can get the full history of Cyprus and in detail, you know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to read it anyway when I get it. And do you have any plans about the book? I mean, to do anything else with the book?
I think before the paperback book comes out next year, I think the thing that I'd really like to do is to try to go to Cyprus and engage a bit more with institutions in Cyprus to see, because one of the reasons I think this book could be useful for the island is getting people who haven't read much about Cyprus interested in the island and helping them to understand it's an amazing place, but also trying to be part of a generation of artists and storytellers who are telling positive stories about the island and why we should be hopeful for its future.
Do you think it can be a good theme for a serial on television, or might be a theatre play or whatever?
I think so.
You think so?
I think it would be a really interesting, actually, to have a documentary series travelling around the island, because there's so much to say, and there's some amazing archaeological sites as well, which have some really valuable stuff.
I'm looking forward to get the book anyway. What other plans do you have in mind? I mean, what's next?
What's next? I'm really enjoying speaking to other kind of Cypriot artists, and currently kind of mentoring another Cypriot writer. So I want that to be part of what I'm doing going forward. And then I need to come up with another book idea, but I don't have one yet.
You don't have one yet? Okay. All right.
This one's taken me a few years.
Few years? You mean to get the idea, or?
Yeah,
to write
and then
it,
to
yes,
write it, and it's been
Yeah.
a little while coming, this book.
Yeah. So how it come about? I mean, why you wanted to get involved in this, writing the history book?
I think originally I wanted to understand everything for myself, to understand how everything fit together, and lots of particularly older periods of history that I felt I didn't understand properly, like the Venetian period, which was only about 100 years, but it left a big mark on the island. So I wanted to figure it out for myself. And the more that I did the research, the more I thought, actually, this is something that could be really useful. You know, it's not necessarily a book like this doesn't already exist. So
yeah. You promote the culture through the book as well, and you know, I mean, talking about the food and all this.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to say through different moments in the history when it was possible to make each of my favorite meals.
Okay.
So when we know about 7,000 years ago at least, we know that there were pigs on the island. This is great. It means that we're getting closer to our failure. You know, olives actually were a very important part of the beginning of civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean, because they could be cultivated on places that didn't have arable crops like wheat and so on. So you increase your surplus. Once you have a surplus, you can trade, and that's the spark of civilization. So olives are very, very important to early civilization in the world, but in the Mediterranean particularly. So yeah, I think these kind of cultural elements are part of our story, and they're part of what makes it an amazing island.
How close are you with the community, the Cypriot community?
I'd like to be more close. So having grown up on the south coast and moved to London as an adult, I felt like I was sort of catching up a little bit. But I did, as a young adult, as a 21-year-old, I did the Nepomac trip to Cyprus, and that was absolutely amazing.
Are you, having, communicating with them still, or?
Yeah, I still see some of them sometimes, and yeah, it was an amazing thing to do. I think it's a really good way for people to understand more about their heritage.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, just before we go, what is your advice for someone who wants to get involved in writing?
For writing, I think there are lots of really amazing books that live in people's heads, and quite often if I do live events, I meet people and they say, "Oh, I would really like to write a book," and I think it's really important to just make yourself sit down, write the book. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make it better later. Yeah, and the nice thing about books actually is that it's as bad as your best draft, you know?
Yeah.
You can keep making it better, and no one has to see it until you're happy with it.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of books out there that don't get written because they stay in people's heads. So you've got to go out and write.
Yeah. Yes, you suggest they have to read a lot before they start writing a book, yeah?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot
plenty of research. It depends on what subject they have in mind.
When you read a book and you feel that someone's read a lot about a subject, or even if it's in fiction, if they want to write, romance books, you can tell if they've written, if they've read lots already in that area, and they're writing from a really deep source of knowledge. It comes easily. They can draw it from that well. And I think if you try to write before you've engaged with it, it makes it harder.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you very much.
It's been nice to have you here, and we learn more about Cyprus as well, but I'm sure I am going to learn more when I get the book, if I manage to get it. So yes, and when you have news about the book, if someone is interested to make a documentary or write a theater play, let us know.
Fantastic,
Yes.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being
Thank you.
brought on.
Thank you very much. I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to say thank you to our sponsor again, Mr. Melis Ouris, Anastasia Lodge and Autumn Gardens and his family. Thank you very much. And you and me, we're going to be together again next Sunday, the same time, after 8 o'clock, with a new face or faces. Have a good night.